Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here today. Welcome to the second SB 1383 presentation hosted by the City of Orange. Today, we will cover organics recycling and its legal requirements through the lens of property managers. Skip that part. I have a couple of folks here today that will go ahead and introduce themselves, starting with Josh.
Hello, Josh Solis here with the City of Orange Public Works.
Hello everyone, my name is Ting Yao. I am with CR&R Environmental Services and I am a sustainability specialist.
And I'm Michael Ballier. I'm a consultant to municipalities in California.
Thank you guys so much. So we'll start off with Ting Yao's presentation. He will go into California waste and recycling legislation, and then Mike will take over next, but we'll start with you.
So as I mentioned before, my name is Ting Yao. I'm with CR&R Environmental Services. We are the trash hauler for the City of Orange. And I am a sustainability specialist. I'm one of the two sustainability specialists for the city. My partner Isabel is joining us today as well. And as a sustainability specialist, we mainly focus on implementing recycling as well as organics programs in the City of Orange. Just to give a quick overview of CR&R. So CR&R is a regional company, specifically to Southern California. However, we also service cities in San Diego County as well as LA County. And it was founded in the 60s, and we are headquartered here in Stanton, so that's pretty close to Garden Grove as well as Anaheim. Now, the reason why I wanted to go over this presentation is there are some new California requirements that you all may be familiar with, and this presentation is going to be more applicable towards property managers, so those that oversee a multifamily complex. However, if you do own a business, a lot of this information is applicable as well. So just to give an overview of the requirements that I mentioned, a couple of them being, the most relevant ones being AB 341, AB 1826, and SB 1383. The one that we are specifically implementing right now is SB 1383. So SB 1383 was actually made effective in 2022, January 1st, 2022, and it states that all businesses as well as multifamily complexes have to have both recycling as well as organic services. So recycling being your cardboard, your paper, your aluminum cans, plastic bottles, and organic waste being both green waste and food waste as well. And I mainly wanted to go over SB 1383 because it is this new requirement. However, I did also want to mention that previous requirements have also been passed by the state, with 341 focusing on recycling and AB 1826 focusing on organics. So 1383, while it is a new requirement, these requirements have already been introduced in the past. The main difference is that 1383 is all-encompassing, so everyone has to follow the requirements. And the reasoning for these statewide requirements is kind of twofold. The first one being the impact of climate change. So we all recognize the devastating effects that climate change can have, but there's actually a lot that we can do in terms of addressing this issue. And of course, being as a sustainability specialist, the area that we want to focus on is reducing the amount of organic waste that ends up in the landfill. And the reason why this is important is because organic waste can actually become methane when it is left in the landfill, which is a very devastating greenhouse gas. And the second reasoning with the implementation of these new statewide requirements is the issue of food insecurity. So food insecurity is a major concern in the state of California. Since we are such a state that is has a lot of people, the issue is kind of exacerbated as well. So with this slide, it kind of shows the amount of food that is thrown away, and on the right-hand side, it shows the amount of individuals in the state that do not have access to food. So this slide is kind of showing the disparity between the amount of food that is left over versus the amount of food that is thrown away and the amount of people that do not have access to food. So kind of the addressing the point of if we can repurpose this food, if we can recover this food, then it would make a big impact. And with the moving of the organic waste and diverting it from landfills, wanted to go over kind of the main difference between the landfill and kind of our own process, which I'll show in the next slide. So this picture kind of demonstrates the ins and out of a landfill, but I mainly wanted to highlight the environmental impacts of landfills, and there's a lot of negative impacts. So issues such as leakages, issues such as water pollution, water contamination, as well as the release of methane are all really devastating impacts associated with the use of landfills. And instead, the organic waste can be diverted to a anaerobic digester. So at CR&R, we actually have our own facility where we do anaerobic digestion. And this facility is located in the county of Riverside and the city of Paris. So what we do is we convert the organic waste that is collected and we actually turn it into two things. The first one being compost, which is used for farmland and gardens, etc. And the second item that is produced is clean natural gas. So natural gas that is used to power our vehicles. So instead of having this organic waste end up in the landfill where it cannot be used for anything else and it creates environmental negative environmental impacts, we can use our anaerobic digester and diversion to change this into a more positive outcome. So with the organic waste, there's kind of a couple of different things in terms of the logistics. So at CR&R, we provide a couple different containers, and the main difference is one is a dumpster bin and the other one is more of a plastic cart. So the dumpster is a 2-yard food waste bin and the cart is a couple different options. So we have 35, 65, and 95-gallon options. So within multifamily complexes, for larger generators, we usually have the dumpster, and for smaller generators, we have the food waste carts. I will also note that for communities where there's a centralized location for throwing away the trash, usually we would have the dumpsters as well. I know specifically for like mobile homes, where the residents usually just leave their trash outside their homes, and that's collected. Usually they just bring it to a centralized location, and that's where the dumpster is more handy. Whereas the food waste cart, it's better if residents are taking it themselves to different enclosures that are located around the community. So with this implementation, of course, there are a couple of different concerns. Since it is a new requirement, it does take some time to get used to. However, I do want to take this time to address some of these concerns. So one of the main concerns that property managers have is the fear of rodents as well as insects and other pests that can enter the trash area because of this new service. I will say that with the implementation of a food waste program, it doesn't do anything to generate more food waste or more trash. What it simply does is it kind of reallocates this trash. So instead of all your trash going into the trash bin, the recycle bin, some of it will go into the organic container. So your food waste and your yard waste. In terms of the other concern, a lot of property managers are also concerned that it is going to be stinky. And we do have some tips to kind of address this issue and alleviate this issue. The main one being that residents can use either a clear plastic bag or a compostable bag and use those bags to directly put into the food waste bin or the food waste cart. And it kind of prevents leakages of the fluids, and it really does a lot to address this issue because it definitely is a valid issue. In terms of the the residents as well as the overall participation of the program. We do understand that it is a new program, so we definitely do not expect residents to be 100% participating in this, and that's where me and Isabel come in as sustainability specialists, and we do our best to educate the community and teach them the best ways that they can use their containers. As I mentioned before, we do a lot of education. However, we also do other stuff. So whether it's the collection of the containers, we work directly with our operations team to help make sure that they are serviced. And we also do a couple other things. We can create these signs to put around the enclosures. We can also reach out and do follow-up site visits to kind of assess the waste. And we are always available via email and telephone as well. So lastly, I do want to give a quick tip in terms of how we can actually implement this program in our homes, and that's with the use of a food waste bin, food waste pail, sorry. And with these food waste pails, residents can actually leave them in the kitchen when they're, collecting food scraps, and when they're done with it, they can actually put it into their freezer or their refrigerator to prevent any odor. And once their container is filled up, that's when they'll take it to the larger food waste container. So that's kind of just the overall logistics of it. As I mentioned before, Isabel and I are always here to answer any questions, and we actually brought over some educational material as well in the back. So yeah, happy to answer any questions at the end of the other presentations, and thank you all so much.
Thank you, Ting Yao. Next, we'll have Mike Balliet come up here and present a little bit more about the CalRecycle requirements and how that applies to multifamily properties and property managers. Click down to advance your slide.
Click down. Perfect. Hi, everybody. Mike Balliet. As I mentioned, I'm a consultant to California cities and have been since, 1992. Basically, the screen here just is to introduce me, and the next one is to emblaze in your mind when you say, do I really need to do this? Why are they having me do this? This is why. This is produced by the state. They are committed to addressing short-term climate pollutants, which methane gas is one. Food breaks down, it releases methane gas. So yes, you do have to do that. So let me just explain a little bit more that went into the regulations and what they are. There we are. So 5 units. Why 5 units or more? Well, historically, duplexes, triplexes, most 4-unit properties are part of residential service, so you get the same 3-cart program that residents get. When you start getting into multifamily properties with 5 units, you typically have a dumpster, a bin. So if you ask me, that's why it's 5 units or more. Now that puts you in the same requirements as businesses. You are mandated by state law to have a recycling program, and you're mandated by state law to have an organic waste recycling program. So you as the property manager or the owner, you are the business that is required to do this. You have to subscribe to a program. If you generate 20 gallons or more, that's the threshold. If you generate 20 gallons per week of organic waste, and that's probably about half this podium, you have to subscribe to a program. You also have to make sure that your residents have access to containers on your property. So if you have a pool and barbecue area, next to your trash container, the regulations require you also have a recycling container for those bottles and cans they have out there, and then also a container for the food waste. Everybody's not going to eat all their burgers. They need to throw it somewhere. You're required by law to have that option there available for them. You also have to educate your residents once per year, and that's where CR&R can help. They have a program brochure, make sure all your residents get one. And then the last line there, within 14 days of a new tenant moving into your property, the law requires that you let them know about your program and how they can participate. So, again, how to start your program. C&R is really the only option for it. There's not private recyclers out there saying, hey, give me your food waste, I'll take it away for free. And recycling markets, since China's green soared a few years ago, are not very strong. So C&R is your best bet. They can also give you the education material you need, so that one's easy. Number two, try to come up with something in your communication to your tenants. Repetition is the mother of skill. This is a new behavior. You need to bring it in front of them on a regular basis. In a large complex, having a building captain that you empower to just talk to other residents about recycling and why it's important, or even for the 5-unit properties. See if you have a resident that's very interested in recycling, that can kind of coach, help the other people when they see them going out and putting the wrong thing in the wrong container. It's a big change of behavior, and the challenge as a property manager is you need to get everybody on board, and that is herding cats, so that's not easy. Another thing that can help, the indoor containers, which was mentioned. If people are separating inside the house, it makes it much more likely that they'll separate outside the house when they get out to the containers. Nobody's going to sift through that kitchen trash bag and do the sort there. So again, if you can help them out with indoor containers, highly recommended. If you have a large property, maybe you designate a couple areas for your food waste containers, have a map so the residents know, hey, if I'm going to recycle my food waste, here's where I go. Anything that can, again, get that thought in your tenant's mind. And 2024, that's a big year. That's when the regulations basically have said, hey, cities, you need to enforce this. You have to have mechanisms in place where this is a violation of city code and there are potential fines. Now, I don't know many cities that are anxious to do that, but I do know that eventually your hauler will not be able to haul trash to the organics facility and call it organics. So you need to get your tenants separating. Going off script just a little bit, I think property managers need to look at their lease agreements. For worst case scenarios, if you have a tenant that just says, I'm going to throw my food in the trash and I'm going to enjoy it, there's nothing you can do about it, you may want to have some contractual ability to go back after that tenant for the fines. The regulations have an anonymous tip line requirement that the cities have to accept anonymous tips. I think that's poison because, you know, Fred keeps parking in my parking spot. I'm going to call the organic waste folks on him. I wouldn't rely on that. But again, the point is you have to think outside of the box. You want to educate, you want to motivate, but ultimately as a property manager, I would want to protect myself against fines if people just won't get with the program. And with that, I will leave you today and turn it back over to Sarah.
Thank you, Mike. I just wanted to point out a couple of resources as well. So CalRecycle actually has a listserv or an email list that they send out email updates to, so you can keep on track of the legislation changes and requirements and some tips that they send out from time to time. So if you'd like to join that list, that's the link to it. They also have their webpage, calrecycle.ca.gov/organics/SLCP. That's another good place to find some good education resources and materials. And then lastly, we have Mike and Jen's contact information as well. So just as for the record, this recording will be posted to the city's YouTube channel and also on the city's website at cityoforange.org/solid waste, so you can reference it again if you're ever needing to check back on some of these things we talked about today. Other than that, thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate your time.